So today we will just be talking through a bit of a 101 on Mobble, how to set up Mobble for success, and how you can get the most out of Mobble coming into end of financial year, here in Australia in particular. I know we have some New Zealanders joining who have a slightly different financial year, but hoping that these are still helpful tips for you, in terms of summaries and reports. But the demo that we're going to be doing today is on our Mobble farm. So essentially the info and the actual data in this farm is all demo farm, and we can play around as much as we like. So ignore the accuracy of this data. It's more just to show you the features and functionality of how Mobble works. So when you first log into Mobble, we'll be using the desktop app. As you can see here, you come up on our dashboard page. So at the top here, you can see our total DSE, and this is any kind of stocking units that you obviously have your Mobble set to, and we'll come down a little bit on the different stocking units that you can have and how you can customize this. But where we're based here is we run DSE. You can see here your livestock totals, grazable hectares, again, hectares, that can be a customizable unit based on where you are in the world. DSE per hectare naturally is what we're running here. Tasks you can see here, we'll come to that in a little bit. You can see a nice visual of your livestock totals. Again, to reiterate, this is all demo data, so hence why you can see a very, very mixed breed of cattle and sheep, but also the breeds here are very random, so please forgive the actual data that you can see. You have on the right here, historic events, so a running log of all historic events that have happened on farm, more as an FYI. As you scroll down, you've got a nice visual of the rain gauge that we'll come to in a moment. And on the right, a historic livestock graph as well. But we'll get into that properly in a little bit when we get to our summaries and reports. So we can do a bit of a deep dive on that in a moment. But when you come into your Mobble, we always recommend starting from the map page. The map page essentially is where we recommend everyone start with Mobble. So when you log in, we recommend mapping your property. If you currently have your property mapped on any other software, particularly in a KML format, we can help you upload that. So, but you can send through your files and we can help you upload. Once you've got your property mapped, we then recommend you add your mobs. You can map any assets as well on that map so that you can see here there's a few different types of assets. You can map your pipelines and things. You can see blue lines here. Open gates if there are gates that are open together. But we'll talk through a couple of these different features now in a little bit more depth. So if you were to manually map your property, what we'd recommend is from the bottom right green plus button here, add paddock. So we're just going to scroll in and add a random paddock today. So again, forgive me as we go through this, but we're just going to be creating data as we go. Obviously won't be entirely accurate. So essentially you just map out the corners and the fence lines of your paddock just by selecting points on the map. So we're just going to create a bit of a demo paddock following this sort of tree line here. And then once you've created the outline of your map, you're just going to double click. And that's essentially going to mark where you've mapped there. You can click and drag the points on the map if you're not quite happy, if you do want to zoom in. On the right here, you can see this snap to boundary function. So when you're putting your paddocks together, we recommend that you have this turned on as it is here. And what it means is it will snap to that existing fence line that you've just put the new paddock down next to. So for the sake of this demo, we're just going to go down the bottom here and call this July, just so that we know exactly where we're working, given the July webinar that we're in now. A paddock type. So you have the ability to customize your paddock types, as you can see here. Through the settings, you can add and delete any paddock types that aren't relevant to your property, just so you're only seeing what you want to work with. But let's just call this a cropping paddock. Select add paddock. And you can see that that paddock here has now been added, called July. It's 609 hectares. And that yellow color is purely because it's customized to be yellow from a cropping perspective at the moment. So essentially that's a quick 101 on how you'll map your property. If you were then to add your mobs, so as you can see, as I zoom out slightly, you can see your mob pins here. If I were to add a mob to this paddock, so from the bottom right-hand corner, select the green plus button, select add mob. When you're first creating your Mobble property, we do recommend you use this setup or other function. If you're doing a lambing or calving function throughout the year, we'll do this natural increase or birth. And naturally, if you're purchasing anything throughout the year as well, you can do it through this purchase function. But from the very first time you're setting up Mobble, we do recommend setup or other. So select your paddock. We're going to search July, just as this is the paddock we've created, just to know visually where these are. Date added to paddock. So it will default as today's date, but you do have the ability to backdate this if that's important to you. We'll just go with today's date for the time being. Select livestock type. So you have cattle, sheep, goats, other. Where we live here, I come from sheep country. So I'm just going to go with sheep for the time being of the demo. Breed, again, these will be pre-populated when you create your Mobble account across sheep, goats, and cattle, but you do have the ability to customize these, sorry, and remove any breeds that won't be relevant to you. As you can see, everything is here just in this Mobble demo property, so you can see what you have the ability to add and delete. But I'll just select merinos for the sake of the demo. Let's make these ewes. Again, you can customize this list through the settings, and we'll come to that shortly. Ages. On the right here, these colors are based off of the Australian recommended ear tag colors, but you can customize these as well. And particularly for those with cattle, you can create custom colors and settings here too. Let's say that these are 24 drop. Classes, this is where we recommend that you customize your Mobble and your mobs. So anything that you do on farm, you can replicate here. So for example, if these were classes first, or they were scanned in lamb as singles or twins, or potentially they're dry, anything that helps you differentiate your mobs is what we recommend that you put in here. And you can add your own class types depending on how you run your operation. But let's, for the sake of this, just call these firsts. Number of head, naturally. So we'll just do 250 for the sake of the demo. And then your DSC per head, if that is different, that will automatically pre-populate. But again, based on how you run your property, that could be slightly different and you can update that as you go. We'll select next. This just gives you a snapshot of the mob card just to confirm the details that you've entered. And then we will select save. So when we zoom back into the map here, you can see that that mob has just been added here in the July paddock. So 250, the sheep icon's telling you that they're sheep, sorry. I've clicked in too quickly. And then this little dot here is just giving you a bit of a quick snapshot of that year, of that 2024, and hence why you can see on other mob pins slightly different colors. So it's just a visual representation of what your mob is. If I click that, you can then see that mob card again, just confirming merino ewes, the July paddock, 2024 drop, their class is firsts, 250 and DSC per head is 1. You can update any details as you go. So if you select into this mob, you have the option of doing a few different things, but if you were just to edit the mob, for example, and update, maybe it's your classes, for example, maybe these are scanned in twin as you go, you just select twins, you could update your DSE. Let's call them 1.5 because they're carrying twins, for example. Select update mob. This is just confirming all the details of that mob there now. So this is now showing the mob page. You can see on the right here that I've edited this mob. So I changed the class from first to first, which is correct, and then added twins, DSE from 1 to 1.5. So if I go back to the map page, this is this highlight card here. So merino ewes, still 24, firsts and twins, DSE per head has been updated to 1.5. So that's just a really quick snapshot of how you can add your mobs into Mobble. Similarly, on the map page, you can also add in any map assets. So bottom right-hand plus button, add map asset. So you have the ability to add in any asset that you'd like. So we'll just scroll into the July paddock that we've created. We'll just create a mock asset for the moment. So up here, there looks to be some sort of a dam, maybe potentially empty. Down the bottom here, I've just clicked on the map where that is. So hence that's geolocated. Down the bottom here, I have the ability to change what type of asset that is. So I'll select dam, click add asset. You have the ability here to name the asset. So this can be really helpful if you have multiple workers or employees as part of your business, or contractors who need access to your Mobble map over time. A description which could be important to you. So this could be a rain-fed dam, this could be bore-fed, any kind of details that's important to add to that asset over time. Select Add Asset. And you can just see that that has been geolocated on the property there. So that's quite a quick 101 of how to use the Mobble map page. And I'm conscious I did move quite quickly just because there's a few things we want to get to in a little bit from end of financial year shortly. But to talk through, I guess, so we've created Mobble, we've created our map and our mobs. To talk through a few different of the features in terms of mob actions, paddock actions, inventory. So once you've created Mobble, anything you do on the paddock, we're digitizing those farm records now. So if I select that mob down the bottom here, these 250 merino ewes, and I click into that card, you have the ability here for a few different types of options. So you can view the mob. So here's where we were before, viewing the mob details. If you do any casualties, so there's any deaths to this mob, this will be recorded on this mob card, or any mob actions down the bottom. And on the right here, you can see a full mob history too. And it's also showing who's doing what to the mob over time. So a really nice traceability of employees or contractors who have access to your Mobble. But if I just click back, to the map page and click that mob card again, I have the ability to move the mob, to edit the mob, add a mob action, report casualty, or sell mob. So if I'm to add a mob action, for example, anything that we do in the yards or in the paddock to this mob, I can record this in Mobble. So for example, this is just confirming that it is this mob here that I'm doing the action to. The number of affected, so I have the ability to do it to the entire mob. Or if it was just 100 in this mob, it will record that only 100 of these ewes have had an action applied to them, but it will default to the entire mob. Date is pre-populated to today's date, but again, you can backdate that action date. Action type, so this is an important piece of information to add. So action type can be added. So for example, if it were a joining action, results, shearing, whatever it may be. So vaccinate, we'll start here with vaccinate because we can talk through how the inventory works at the same time. So select vaccinate. If there's a product added, so I can select add product. So this automatically pulls from products in our inventory. So product, we'll go to animal health. And then products you can see here have already been added to our inventory, but you can also add a new item as we go. What I'll do is I'm just going to select 7-in-1, for example, which already exists in our inventory. Different batches have been added here. Again, ignore the specific data that you can see here. It is mock data for the sake of the demo. But let's just select this bottom batch down the bottom. So 7-in-1, so quantity per head I can enter, or I can enter as total quantity. Let's just say we've added 1 mil per ewe. So that will then pre-populate that we've done 250 mil for the mob. Withholding period is pre-populated based on what's been entered when we entered the inventory item, which we'll come to shortly, but you can update that again as you go here. If there's any notes that are important to add with this mob action, you can also add here, or you can upload any files as well. So a file or an attachment that could be important here is potentially the batch data, so taking a photo of that specific batch, or it could be like the yard setup if that's important to track over time, or it could be a specific animal. But you can attach any kind of file that you like here. And I'll select apply action. So what that will have done is if I just will do it from the map page, if I go back to this specific mob here and I select view mob, that has now added a new vaccination record to this specific mob here. So I can click into this record and it will just give me a quick high level on the details that we did just put in. And if there is a file attached to it, I'd have the ability to click into it and download it in the future if that's also important to you. So that's a really quick snapshot of how mob actions work. I know we did have a question on a mob action about joining and adding RAM EIDs. So currently how Mobble works is Mobble is mob-based data entry only. If you wanted to add your RAM individual data, What we would recommend is from the map page. So selecting Merino use, we'd select add mob action. So again, confirming the same details. From an action type perspective, we'd go joining. And what we'd recommend is through this attachment option is uploading the file that contains the details of those specific RAMs that have been joined to that mob. So that's how we'd recommend doing individual management through Mobble. Again, Mobble is based on mob-based data, but that is a way that can help with from an EID perspective. So you'd essentially just upload the RAM details here and then select apply action. And then in the future, when you wanted to go back and see what RAMs had been added, again, you'd go back. So selecting into this specific mob, select view mob. On the right here, you'd have that joining action saved. And then if your RAM details were attached here, you'd be able to download and see or confirm what RAMs were added to that mob for joining. So I do know that we had that question come through through our pre-registration. So hopefully that is helpful. Just to go back to the inventory conversation, as we were touching about it on it before, if you were to add new inventory that you wanted to use over time, so animal health, herb, pesticides, fertilizers, feed, grain, and storage are always pre-populated in Mobble when you create your account. So animal health, for example, as I mentioned before, these products are all added in here already from a demo perspective, but all you'd need to do in the bottom right-hand corner is click the green plus button, add inventory item, and essentially you'd add your product, your unit, what kind of gram or kilo liters example that product comes in, withholding period, ESI, wool withholding date, a wool withholding period, sorry. And then you'd add that item to inventory and then add specific batch details too, as they are important. And then you can use these inventory items to your mob actions. So essentially a really quick 101 on how those items are added to inventory. And you can add any details that you want through that process as well. If I just click into one of these, for example, that 7-in-1 that we were just talking about and we just used, you have the ability to view the item overall, add a new batch. For example, if you get a new batch in, you can add that batch ID here and quantity, date received, expiry. Just got to jump back, sorry. Oh, might have to touch on that a different time and talk to the developers about it. But essentially what I'm trying to show you is there is a really nice dashboard there that shows you 7-in-1 details over time, and you can see that product usage over time as well, and every record of that product to a specific mob. So apologies about that. We might have just found a bug. But as I mentioned, developers are working on inventory or about to kick off a deep dive into inventory shortly. So I'm sure that they will be touching on that. Let me just jump back in again. Sorry about all the click around. But essentially, really high level, that is how inventories work. Rain gauge, you have the ability to add in rain gauge data and then individual rain data over time. For example, this house paddock. This will just give you a snapshot of rain over time, and you have the ability to add a rain reading from this bottom right-hand corner here, which is just a manual entry currently. But you can see here files. So this is property level files that you can add to Mobble. So for example, we have 6 broad categories that you can see here. So compliance and regulation, people and operation, land environment, finance, administration, equipment and machinery, and livestock and breeding. So this is not the files that you would see when you're uploading to a specific mob action or paddock action. This is a layer that sits above and beyond that anyone in your team can access. So for example, finance administration, you can add any files to this that anyone in your Mobble team can access that's important to you. There's just 3 mock files in here that you can see currently, but to bulk download, if that's important to send to your accountant at the end of the financial year, as it is right now, you can select the relevant files and download here. You can also filter in this filter option here, select date range, and select the last financial year, which would pre-populate to last financial year dates here. There are no files that were added during that time period, but if there were, you'd have the ability to bulk download and then essentially send a zip file to your accountant if that's important to you or that's important to your accountant. Alrighty, jumping right ahead into summaries, and then we'll go into the reporting page. So summaries is a really nice page that sits within main menu that can essentially show you a really nice high level and also detailed event log of everything that happens in your Mobble. So you can see here event log. So every single action that happens in your Mobble will be listed in your event log. You have the ability to search if that's important to you. So if I search myself, I can essentially see anything that has tagged. Um, sorry, I'll just quickly caveat that. It'll show anything that is remotely similar to the search function. So if there's something that was spelled incorrectly or something slightly off. So for example, Santa is coming when I search Samantha, and it's purely from the likeness of the spelling. That's hence why you can see the difference in things coming up. But I could search for myself or anything that has happened over time there. Map assets, just giving you a nice summary of all map assets that you can see on your property. Sensors will come to in a moment, but essentially this is to do with our integration. So FarmBot, if there are any FarmBot sensors that you have integrated into your Mobble account, or Farmo will also be listed here. Our Farmo integration is due to roll out in the next couple of weeks, but we will update on that very shortly once that goes live. But if you do have any sensors integrated, this is where you would see them from a summaries perspective, but also on your map page. Mob actions, again, you'll see a nice summary of all mob actions that have happened in Mobble over time. So you can obviously see the type, date, who recorded it, etc. Products. Sales, again, for end of financial year might be important. So sales, this is just showing you a full summary of sales over time, but you do have the ability in this top right-hand filter to filter by last financial year. And this will then update and show you any sales that were entered in that financial year. And you can also download this record as well and send potentially to your accountant, to your livestock agent, whoever it may be that needs to see these records. Purchases works very similarly to sales, as you can expect, but again, showing a full purchase record and then having the ability to filter by last financial year in the top right-hand column and then download those records as well. Natural increases. So this is one that we know is quite important to mobblers, just to confirm what has been either lambed or calved in their Mobble property over time or in the last financial year, again, for records for your accountant or potentially your own business keeper, whoever that may be. So you have the ability, again, to filter by last financial year up the top corner here, and this will just give you a nice summary of anything that was added to Mobble from a natural increase perspective over that time period. Again, you can add your casualties into Mobble. I won't touch on that right now, given the time. But really quickly, just here, livestock numbers. So this can be a really nice summary on livestock that is currently in your Mobble right now. And it just filters really simply by type, so cattle, number of head, and then DSE, but it does filter down based on breed, classes, and then your tags as well. So that can be a really nice snapshot just to confirm what you do currently have in your Mobble. Alrighty, from a reports perspective, so we know that this is why quite a few of you have joined the webinar today. So reports is only available on the desktop app. So what you're seeing here with my screen. So the reports page shows your historic livestock that you can see up the top here, a really nice visual of livestock numbers over time. You have a nice snapshot of your totals, livestock sold, casualties, purchases, and natural increases. And this is all filtered by the date range that is shown at the top of the screen here. So we have the ability to change that, and I'll show you that in one moment. Your livestock reconciliation report, which we'll come to very shortly, and then a nice sales report that you can see at the bottom here. So if I were to prepare for end of financial year, so going up to this date filter at the top here, I'm just going to click last financial year. So that will pre-populate, so the 1st of July to the 30th of June, that's just passed. And this shows from a historic livestock graph perspective, so just a nice visual of how your numbers have changed over that financial year. But on the right here, you also have the ability to update this based on what's important to you. So as I mentioned, my Mobble is set up for DSE and DSE per hectare, and you can see how that may have changed over that time period. As you scroll down, so because we've filtered by last financial year, my livestock reconciliation report will have also updated based on that last financial year as well. So what you can see here on the left-hand side is type, and then we filter by breed and gender. It will show a starting head. So for example, no Angus bulls at the start of financial year. Natural increase, so if you've added any calves or lambs to your Mobble over that last financial year. Any purchases, so for example, you can see there were 3 Brahman mixed sex purchased in this financial year. Again, this is mock data, so please take it with a grain of salt. Any casualties that have been entered, your sales, and then your closing head. And then on the right here, you can also see how that number from starting head to closing head has changed over that time period. So the starting head number works based on that first date, so the 1st of July, and your closing head number is based on that 30th of June number, or 30th of June date, sorry. Again, you can update this date range depending on what's important to you, but this is just showing for end of financial year. And you just get a really nice snapshot of how your livestock numbers have changed over that time period. So again, this is downloadable and you are able to send this to your accountant, for example, or your business manager or bank manager for that matter, just giving a really nice visual representation of all the changes that have happened to your livestock numbers on farm over time, pending obviously that they were entered into your Mobble. Similarly, the livestock report as well, you have the ability to download this report as well, but this is just showing anything that you did enter into Mobble over that same time period from a download perspective for end of financial year. That's just a really nice snapshot of how reports works in Mobble. I'll just go through a couple of settings quickly and then we'll open the floor up to some questions. So in settings here, this is where you have the ability to customize your Mobble. So for example, units and formatting. So I can update my stocking rate. So pending where you are in the world. For example, I know we have some New Zealanders on the call. So stocking unit or SU is where you can update that too. Area unit, for example, your date format. Yeah, essentially your units and formatting. This is where you can update it. Sorry. Under your profile, so again, pending where you are in the world, you do have the ability to update your language here. And I should have prefaced up front that we are talking in what we call the English or Australian version of Mobble language. So that's just showing mobs and paddocks, for example. But if I were to update this to Canada or the United States, that would show as herds and fields. Integrations. So here is where you can integrate with our partners. So for example, AgWorld, FarmBot, and FarmFocus. So this is where you can activate these. So AgWorld being your cropping side of the business, FarmBot for water monitoring solutions, and then FarmFocus to help with your accounting and livestock reconciliation. We are also about to roll out Farmo, and then OptiWay is also on the very near horizon as well. But you'll hear about those through Mobble News in the next couple of months. But yes, both on the very, very near horizon, which is incredibly exciting. And if you do have any feedback on how you would like those integrations to show up on your Mobble, please do send that through to us because we're always really keen to get feedback, particularly on how you'd like these integrations to show and to function within Mobble. Team members on the right here. So adding your team members, you can see here there are quite a lot of team members on this Mobble farm. Essentially, as a demo property, this is everyone in Mobble has access to this, but you do have the ability to add your team members in here. And Mobble Connect is where you can add other farm advisors or partners who assist with your business. So, for example, farm advisors, stock agents, accountants, contractors, auditors. And they will have access to Mobble for specified periods of time. For example, auditor, so only has access for 30 days. They can view your mobs, paddocks, map, inventory, summaries, reports, and tasks. And you can have one of these team members per your property. Classes, types, and tags is what I touched on up front as we were moving through the different types of paddocks and breeds and genders. So this is where you have the ability to add and remove any paddock types, for example, that are important to you, to update the colors and to fully customize your mobble. So again, sheep breeds. So I could add or delete any breeds here that are important to my farming business, just to simplify down how you're viewing your mobble. And I'm sure that there are some questions that have come through. So I'll just pause for a moment if we have any questions that have come through.
Thank you. Um, I am just flashing back to when we first started with Mobble and the instigator as to why we started using Mobble, because we were trying to fill in some paperwork for what stock we had in December, and we're in February, and it was about three different paper notes to try and find what we actually had on hand. Is there an easy way in Mobble to see this data? I'm assuming it's going to be in reports, maybe, from what I've just learned. Could you show perhaps where that is?
Yeah, definitely, Britt. And from the reports page here, and I'd recommend filtering by either a date, before and the day of, or potentially the start and end of that month that you are looking for is how I would do it. And then you would essentially see so for example, sorry, I should give a proper example here. If we just go the 1st of July last year and we go to the 30th of July last year, this is essentially a snapshot of the 1st of July number here and the 30th of July starting head, closing head. But you could narrow that down to one specific day if you did want to. But that's how we'd recommend that you do that, is through that livestock reconciliation report.
Excellent. That is great. And that is only on the laptop version, not on my phone version. Is that
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
Yeah. Just this reports page here is the only page that's on the web version. And it's purely from a functionality perspective. We do find it is quite a hard page to use from the phone version, and that's why.
Yep. Okay. No, that's cool. I was wondering as well, how secure is Mobble? Because we do have a few gate keys round and about, and I was just wondering when I load the gate map assets, I would like to sort of perhaps, if it was safe enough, pop notes in being like, it's under this post, under this leaf, and da 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 da. Is that possible? And how secure should I be treating Mobble in that sense?
Yeah, so we, take data protection very seriously. As long as you, like all of the data is stored in very secure systems, it's encrypted and access is restricted. And our just advice would be to keep your account safe, use a really strong password, don't share it with people who you don't want to have access. And there's also obviously using Mobile Connect, different tiers of access levels as well. So you can just kind of manage it through that. But otherwise, I think that's a great way to let people know where gate keys are. So we would highly encourage it to be used in that format.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Do we have any other questions from the floor?
I've just got a quick question.
Sorry, go.
Sorry, Charlie here. Sorry, I missed the Q&A quickly. Just a couple of things. When you're, say, feeding a mob and you're performing an action on that mob, which is, feeding them grain or straw or hay or whatever, how do you avoid doing an exact dose or weight or something when you're adding a product from your inventory, you have to put down a specific dose or weight that you're giving out?
Yeah, so you're wanting to do an action without out the dose. Is that
Yeah,
um,
because we do some grain trail feeding,
yep.
and obviously we've got a rough dosage in mind, but then that sort of buggers up our inventory a little bit. And I know our inventory isn't perfect, but we want to start getting on top of,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a bit hard because you have to put the exact things in and then you have to sort of make up your inventory and it all becomes a little bit of a lie.
Oh, perfect. Oh, there we go. So probably there's a couple of things here. Was it Charlie? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlie, that you could do. One of the ways that I have seen people get around this on their operations is, so essentially they'll have some feed carts that are able to accurately weigh over time and some that aren't. What some people will do, for example, is in animal health, they'll essentially have Dectomax and then put basically weight based and then a Dectomax that's kind of a free for all. And the Dectomax weight base is they'll track that product use over time. So as you scroll down here, you essentially see product use over time that would be accurately showing what you are using. And then
Yep.
they'd have the other Dector Max that is kind of untracked that they're not really reporting on over time. So it's still the
Okay.
same product, obviously, but it's just showing up slightly different because, as you do mention, when you do a product action, a mob action, sorry, an added product, you do have to put in either that
Okay.
weight or that
Yeah.
detail. So that is one way you can get around it if that's helpful.
Yeah, no dramas. And just one other quick thing, sorry.
Yeah.
Putting like tag numbers and EIDs into the system because I know sort of we're progressing to more of a individualized system.
Yeah.
So we can integrate EIDs and tag numbers into the system as well and into specific mobs. Like not for, probably for everything for the time being, but particularly for things like Rams. I know you said you can't put exact things on things like joining before, but whether you can do that for other animals.
Yeah, so I guess where Charlie's getting at is, so for example, if I were to click on let's just click the use, for example, I couldn't have a specified list, say this were your RAMs, showing exactly the RAM kind of EID numbers against this mob. But what we'd recommend doing is either uploading an Excel sheet or a photo of the tags to this mob when you do an action over time. And that just basically saves that file or photo upload to that action or to that mob. But you can't specifically add the details to this mob card that kind of tracks its use in time over Mobble. So you'd be
Yeah.
uploading it to each action type or whatever you move the mob. Or alternatively, you can also add it in this files section here.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
example, livestock and breeding. This is where people do add that kind of EID spreadsheet information over time.
Yeah. Okay. No dramas. Thank you for that.
No worries at all. If you've got any questions specific to your operation, please reach out to our incredible customer team and they'll really be able to give you great one-on-one advice or talk you through your specific problems or property. But thank you so much for joining us today.